Hello, my name is Lynn, and thank you so much for joining me today. In this craft session, I'll be showing you the cards that I made using the Tonic Studios craft kit number 37. This one's called Rosemaling, and it actually came October 2020, but I'm only just now getting around to using it because it, along with a few other kits, arrived while I was out of town. And so I've been progressively working through the tonic kits backwards more or less, and so now I'm all caught up now that I've used this kit. And in this video, I actually have 5 Mother's Day cards, and they are all circle cards as well. So there's a lot going on with this card making session because not only is it a flip video where I make at least one flat, one layered, one interactive, and one pop-up card, but circle cards are rather new for me, and so I embraced the circular designs of this month's kit and made all circle cards. Those two tiered pop-up cards, 3-tier pop-up cards, that was brand new to me as well, and I had so much fun making it in my last card making session that I thought, well, would it work for circles? And sure enough, it does. And this rocker style card is also new for me too, so I learned a lot during this card making session. It is going to be a rather lengthy one, but I'm going to try to, at least for the triple tiered circle pull-up cards, I'm not going to speed it up too fast just so that I can talk through a little bit more detail how I created it. So I'm going to first start off by creating a circle card base. Now, if you've never made a shaped card base before, you can do this with pretty much any shape. All you want to do is just make sure that you start with a folded card and make sure that that fold is below one of the edges on your die so that the fold remains intact. And that fold is going to be where what attaches the front and the back of the card. So that's why we want to make sure that you don't cut through that entirely. And so once we've run that through our die cutting machine, we have a nice circle shaped card. It's not a perfect circle because at the fold you'll see a straight line, but that's okay. We are going to add a full circle to the front, and if you want, I do this sometimes too, I add a full circle die cut to the back as well. So you'll end up really not seeing that straight fold. So now I have another panel, and this has a, you could do like a 1/2 inch to a 3/4 inch hinge, and just like we did before, I'm preserving that fold by making sure that the fold is below the top cut line of the circle. And this little panel, this extra panel that I'm die cutting here, this is going to be what I call the pull-up panel. And I do have a real-time lengthy tutorial on how to create a 3-tiered pull-up card based on whatever dies you happen to have. If you're trying to kind of use what's in your stash and design around that, then I talk through, how I figure out measurements and whatnot. So if you want to see this in a little bit more detail, you can definitely do that. So here what I'm going to do is line up my fold with the score line so that I know my cut line on the other side will be exactly parallel. And I'm just trimming a little bit off so that when I put this panel inside my folded card, it's not, it'll actually rest within the card, because if you notice there, that side that I trimmed off, that was where the fold was on the other side. And so because we don't have a full circle there, a full circle die cut isn't going to fit. So that's why I trimmed a little bit off. And you want to be so much off that it doesn't have to be a ton, just maybe an 1/8 of an inch or so. So here what I did was I drew a line that's about 1.5 inches long, and I'm positioning my circle, the smallest circle in the die set, so that I have that line running, like meeting up with two of the edges at the bottom. So here I made a mistake and I fully die cut this out, which I was not intending on doing, but that's okay because I still need this panel anyways. But the whole reason for drawing that line was actually to do a partial die cut. So I'm gonna just do that all over again. This is my second try at that. So I'm gonna draw a line and have it be more or less centered on my card here, and it'll be 1.5 inches. And what I'm going to try to do is make sure that some portion of the circle die fits below that. So I'm lining up so that that 1.5 inches meets up with two edges on my circle die. And what I'm going to do is put my top cutting plate on the upper portion of my die right up to the line, so that anything that's not covered by my top cutting plate won't get cut. And the reason why I'm doing this is because this will be the topmost tier, or the smallest tier in our triple tier pull-up card. And I just want more of this circle to show. And in order for that to happen, I need to actually have some card below my circle die cut so that it can attach to the actual pull-up mechanism. And partly this is because I do want to use the really cool sentiment that comes in this kit. It's a verso die that says, it's your day. And I want to be able to see the complete sentence or sentiment. And so in order to achieve that, I need to make this topmost tier just a little bit, extend a little bit further. So here what I'm doing is just creating that extension. So where the circle ends, I'm just going to cut straight lines down. And I'm going to do that on both sides. It can help to kind of cut away some of the excess card, which is what I just did there. And I'm making sure to use the lines on my grid mat to try to get these lines as straight as possible. And I'm just going to trim away until I'm more or less at that 1.5 inch mark, because I had already created one of these triple tier circle cards as just a proof of concept to myself that it works. And so I determined that if I can pull up my pop-up card at least to that point, where that line 1.5 inch line is, then I can fully read the "It's Your Day" sentiment. And you'll see that a little bit more clearly as we put the card together. So how I made that large one, I did the exact same thing for the middle tier. And so as you saw there's a slot cut out of the pull-up panel on my middle tier. So let me show you how I did that on this largest tier here. So we're working with the panel that just has that small hinge, and I'm lining up my straight edge with a grid line. This little piece of paper here, it's the same circle die cut that I just cut out of copy paper and folded in half. And I have this in various sizes of circles from this kit. And it's just scratch paper. It just makes it easier to kind of get the halfway point of a circle. So I'm marking 1/2 inch down all the way to 3 3/4 inches. And I want to cut a slot from between those two tick marks that I made. So starting at 1/2 inch from the top, going all the way down to 3 3/4 inches. And if you're off a smidge, it's no problem. It doesn't have to be super precise because one, you can always adjust that slot a little bit if you really need it, and two, when you go to attach the middle tier, there's a little bit of wiggle room as well. So you just want to. These are the dimensions and sizes and that worked for how I want my triple tier pull up to work. So I want all of the circles to nest within each other and not be visible until you pull the tab up. And you can design it to whatever aesthetic you prefer if you prefer that some of the card is showing. Okay, so now we have our pieces in here, and the bottom and the middle tier are going to essentially be the same. So you have your card base, which is that folded shaped card. You've got the pull-up panel, which has the little glue tab and the slot cut from it. And the third piece that I'm die cutting right now is the front panel, which is going to be a full circle. And this is what I was mentioning earlier, where you don't have to worry about that folded edge not being a full circle, because we're going to put a full circle right over top of that. So here's my die cut, and then that's going to basically hide our folded edge. And then our topmost panel is just this little one that we custom made. So at the end of the day, you'll have, at least if you're doing it this way, 7 sections or 7 pieces to assemble. So what I'm going to do is just start to put some of this together. So on my glue tab, I'm going to put a little bit of liquid glue, and I'm going to make sure that my straight line on the other end there is parallel to the fold. That way I know everything is going to go straight up and down. So I'm going to attach that, burnish it really well. And I've been putting Scotch tape right along the seam here where my glue tab, where there's a difference in height between my glue tab and the card base. And I don't think it may not be necessary to do this, but generally when you have a difference in card width like that, it could create a catch point where something may kind of that difference in level might obstruct the movement of the card. In this case, because that level difference is actually running parallel to the motion that the card is moving in, I don't think it's going to create a catch point, but I do it just out of out of precaution anyways. So here I have some of my decorative pieces, and I am just gonna try to save a little bit of that specialty paper by die cutting a little bit from the center, and because it's not going to get seen anyways. And what I was doing was the purple piece, just making sure that it completely covered my die. That way I know I'm not cutting too much out of the center of this. And I'll use that circle die cut on a different card. It's just that the Tonic specialty papers are so pretty. I like to preserve as much of it as possible so that I can use it on multiple projects, and especially when you're just going to cover it up anyways and no one's going to see below there. I think it's well worth it. So for whatever reason, this one little section did not die cut completely, but that may just be me, because I found that most of the time Tonic die is cut very, very cleanly. So I'm just going to start to decorate this panel, and this is I'm not doing anything super unique here, but so I'll just take a moment to also talk about the other tutorials that I have for triple tier pull-up cards. So I think I mentioned that I do have a lengthier video on how to create a custom triple tier pull-up card, and that one is not sped up at all. It's in real time. So, and I talk through a lot of the, hows and whys of what I'm doing, mostly because I purchased a Tonic Studios die set that is called Look Who It Is, and that's an add-on to the, well, I don't even know what the base die set is because I don't have it. The original sort of base creator die set for that has the dies that will create the triple tier pull-up for you. But because I bought the Look Who It Is die set just because it was on super sale at Craft Stash, I figured I can, just kind of figure out for myself how to make a triple tiered pull-up card. And so as I went about doing that, I decided to shoot the tutorial as well, just to share with you how I went about it. And I'm sure there are a lot of different ways to create this style of card. This is the one that works well for me, and I don't have to buy anything additional or new. And I know that I've seen some tutorials that just have a slightly different mechanism, and I think the Tonic one has a different pull-up mechanism as well, but I'm going with this because it's sort of what I am familiar with. And so definitely check out other tutorials as well, because you may find that some of those other methods work a little bit better for you, or for what you have in your craft room. So I'm going to put this center circle here up on some foam just to give it a little bit of height, and I definitely recommend doing all of your decorating before you start to put your panels together, because as you saw, I was able to still burnish everything. It's nice, and everything was nice and level, and you can really attach things as you like and get it perfect before you commit to putting it onto your card base. And especially before actually putting all of the tiers and all of the sliding mechanism together. I do have another set of triple tier cards that I made during the, I think, Tonic Kit 41 Sweet Sorbet. So if you want to check out that video for even more triple tier cards, those are the ones where I used the Look Who It Is die set. And they are the more standard sort of rectangular card style. So in case you want to see that again, for this middle tier, we're going to do the exact same thing. So I'm going to attach the pull-up panel to my folded card base. I'm going to make sure that the straight edge that we drew, that lines up and is parallel to the fold. That's how we know that our slot is going to go exactly up and down. And that's one of the differences between, this and a regular rectangular card, is you really do have to kind of be mindful of trying to keep straight lines and parallel lines, because working with a circle, you don't have a lot of straight lines. So if you want everything to kind of be oriented the same way, then we have to kind of use the few straight lines that we do have to really make sure that everything's going to move in the right direction, and whatever is up is really truly up. So I'm gonna make sure everything is well burnished, and again, I'm gonna do all of the decorating for this panel. So I've already attached my full circle to the front, and again, I'm gonna use my grid mat. So I'm lining up that slot because I know that's a straight line that I can use to just make sure my card is truly straight up and down. And that's what I mean. We don't have a lot of straight lines to use as reference points, so you have to, use what you can to keep yourself oriented, and that way especially if you're adding sentiments or anything that has pattern paper that has an orientation, like an up-down orientation, you just really want to be mindful of keeping a true up and down orientation. So this is some of the specialty paper that I die cut, and on the middle tier and the topmost tier, I like to try to keep it as flat as possible so that it just doesn't create too much bulk that has to nest inside the tier below it. So that's why I've die cut the same size circle that I'm holding here. I die cut that same size from the specialty paper just so that I can, now all of that's just one level. And you could just as well, layer the glitter paper on top of the specialty paper. I mean, the specialty paper isn't too terribly thick, but just to err on the side of being a little bit extra cautious, I decided that I want it to be as flush as possible and as flat as possible. To die cut the word grandma out of the glitter card, I used a Sizzix alphabet die set. It's from Tim Holtz, and I don't know if it has a proper name as such, but if you are interested, the product number, I still happen to have it out here, is 664177. And it's a really nice small alphabet, and it comes with 140 dies. And the beauty of that is every letter, there's multiples of it, sometimes up to, I think, like 5 copies of a single letter. And that's really nice because you can do long phrases, words that use the same letter multiple times, like grandma uses a twice, and you can do that die cutting in one pass because you do have multiple letters. And that way, in the case of grandma, it's not too hard because the second A is at the very end. But if you needed a second of the same letter and it was somewhere in the middle, but you only had the one die, you would have to leave enough space for it or do multiple die cutting. It's just so convenient to have multiple dies of the same letter so that you can just do all of the die cutting in one go. Okay, so that is our second tier complete, and what I'm going to show you is how to put together the pull-up part. So part of the pull-up is the slot that we already die cut, and this is the other part. I just punched out some 3/4 inch circles, and the full circle that I just put glue on, that's 120 pound. But the circles that I folded in half, that's from 65 pound paper. And that's so that the 65 pound paper is lighter weight, so it can fold nicely, it doesn't create a lot of bulk, and that is going to be important because we're going to actually slot that through that slot that we have, as you saw. And if you use cardstock that's a little too thick, then that slot that's in the pull-up tab, there may not be enough room for it to kind of glide easily. But I do like putting the 120 pound discs on the front and the back because that gives it a lot of strength, it gives it a lot of stability, and it's going to be what we attach our tiers to. So the way to start assembling this is from the smallest tier downwards. So we want, here I'm positioning that smallest tier that says it's your day, and see how I you can read the full sentiment. If we didn't add that extra, I think it ends up being an inch or so, then there wouldn't be enough card to actually attach to our little pull-up disc there. So, so that's why I have done the partial die cutting the way that I did. And I'm just going to trim off a little bit of this excess. I don't actually need it to be as long as it is, but it's good to just kind of leave it there until you know for certain whether or not you'll need it. And here again, I'm lining up what I know to be straight edges. I'm using the up and down line, not the line I just cut. And I'm lining up again another piece of just copy paper that's folded in half, the exact same size circle folded in half, so that I can get the midway point. And having that midway point allows me to actually line up the center of this panel here with the center of my pull-up tab here, because I have a center line that's drawn on there as well. Again, this is just to give us some straight lines so that we can line up and truly know that we're going straight up and down, that we're centered, and everything looks the way that we want. So here again, I'm going to make some final adjustments. It doesn't look like, it looks like some of my card is showing, some of the straight part is showing, and I don't want that. So I'm actually just cutting a little bit off so that more of that circle shape is shown. And so I'm just going to cut that off. And the reason why I cut it off at an angle is just to keep the width of that bottom portion so it doesn't get so small that it won't fit or cover my circle tabs entirely. So you see how that looks much, much better. You don't see any of the straight part. Now, to attach, you want your little circle discs to be all the way at the bottom, and then you can line up however you like. So I want everything to be completely hidden, and that was a little bit of a close-up of how I have those center reference lines that I'm matching up. And I just made sure that when it's all the way in the closed position, or that disc is all the way at the bottom, that none of the circle tab is shown. This is again another 3/4 of an inch circle that I just punched using a circle punch, and this will be my circle tab. So I'm gonna snip off a portion of one of those circles, because one of them is going to rest on the back, and I'm going to line up that line again just so that I can make sure that it's in the same position that I had drawn it, and I'll touch the front. That's going to be the visible side, and then of course it moved. And so I'll cut this off. And the reason why I'm trimming that off is because I don't want a catch point. So as I mentioned, anytime you kind of stack cardstock on top of one another, you create different levels. And when you create a different level of cardstock like that, sometimes it can create a catch point where it won't slide completely or smoothly down to where you want. So now that I have my pull tab attached, I'm going to layer on top of it my decorative panel, and it's definitely easier to do that when everything's still open. You can still burnish, and always test your mechanism, especially after you've used adhesive anywhere near your mechanism. It's your best chance for kind of correcting anything is when that glue hasn't completely set or hasn't completely dried yet. So now that we know that our innermost or topmost tier is working smoothly, we can close up the middle tier. So here you can put adhesive, just, wherever you want. Just don't put it too close to the pull-up mechanism. So you don't want it too close to the slot, and you don't want it too close to the circle tabs. So I just run a couple of strips along both sides. And this is going to close nice and neatly because our pull-up panel, we did leave that little 1/8 of an inch from the fold of our card base. And I'm adding just a touch of liquid glue just to make sure this is a very strong bond here. I don't know that the liquid glue is 100% necessary, but being that this is an interactive card, you don't want things coming apart on you. So it doesn't take a lot. So just a little scribble of liquid glue is going to be enough. So let me show you again how to put together the pull-up. So this is 65-pound paper that I've punched 3/4 of an inch disc out of. I have 2 of those, and I have 2 3/4 of an inch disc cut out from 120-pound paper. And I needed an extra, I guess, so I punched out another one. So the lighter weight paper, the 65-pound paper, you just need to fold that in half and give it a good burnish. And those 2 pieces, you just want to attach them to one of your 120-pound. So keep it folded and then attach that to your 120-pound disc and keep the second one folded and attach that as well. So you've got 120-pound on one side and then your 2 folded discs in the center there. And then you want to slot that through and fan out those folds and then attach your other 120-pound disc on the other side of the slot. So the 2 folded lighter weight cardstock folded circles are sandwiched between those 120-pound ones. And so as you're doing this, if it helps, also you might want to make little notes to yourself which way is the front. That way when everything pulls up, you're definitely going to see everything. But I always create these triple tier pull-ups in the same sort of orientation so that I know which way is front now because I'm consistent about how I do it. Okay, so here again, I lined up that straight cut edge with my grid and I used my T-square ruler to make sure that grandma was perfectly horizontal, and that's the T-square is really nice for that because then you know that everything is nice and at 90 degrees. So and I attached this middle tier much the same way as that topmost tier, just positioning it where I wanted and then making sure that while it's in the closed position, it's all the way down and hidden within the largest panel. And then here I'm going to close up my my bottommost tier, and I think I put 3 strips of double-sided tape and again just a little bit of liquid adhesive. You just want to make sure you're steering clear from the sliding mechanism, so the slot and the circle discs. And that's our triple tier card complete. So you can give everything a good burnish, and that's how you put one of those together. So I decided I wanted to add some of these dream drops. This is Cloud 9. And what I like to do is with Nuvo drops, sometimes, especially when I'm a little bit unsure, I like to just make the drops on, this is just a piece of scrap. It's actually the paper liner that you peel off of double-sided adhesive tape. So I have rolls that are 5-6 inches wide, and when I make mini albums, I use that size a lot. And then I just keep those paper liners and use them to make my Nuvo drops on, or do inking techniques on and whatnot. So here's my second circle triple tier pull-up card, and this is the one that I made first to just see if it works as a circle. And so you can see the mechanism is already fully assembled, and you can definitely do it in this order. It's just I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, because then as you apply your decorative layers, you can't really burnish it, because as you can see here, I'm having to get my bone folder kind of between the layers. It's possible, it's just you know, it's a little easier when things are nice and flat and open. So I'm speeding this portion up quite a bit, because you've already seen how to create it, and this is just decorating. For the Happy Mother's Day sentiment, I used my We Are Memory Keepers word punch board, and so I do have a separate tutorial on that if you want to check that out. But what's really nice is I actually just picked up the lowercase alphabet set of punches, and for the longest time they only had uppercase and numbers, but now I don't know when they released it, because I don't really stay on top of these things, but I just discovered it, let's put it that way, on Joann's when they were having like 60% off of We Are Memory Keepers items. And so it had been something I always wanted, was the lowercase set, and so I finally picked it up. I did forget on that first card to put my little arrow, so don't forget, on your pull tab, you can either stamp something that says pull or put the little arrow. So here I am making a circular rocker card, and I did have to cut a circle larger than the largest circle die that's in this die set. So that circle I cut using, it's just, I should have shown it, but so sorry for that. If you want to see the tool, just let me know, and next time I go to use it, I'll record a tutorial. But the diameter of that large circle is 6.5, and the matte layer is another circle that's cut at 6.25. And so those just happen to be sort of the dimensions that I liked, but you can definitely make that just according to your own aesthetic. And the circle cutter that I have actually works pretty well. I've only used I bought it specifically to make this card, actually, but I know I'll get a lot of use out of it, because I don't have circle dies that can cut large circles. And this particular circle cutter can cut anywhere from a 4-inch diameter to a 12-inch, actually maybe more like 12.25-inch diameter circle. So, that's a lot of circles. So, and anything in between. So I think that I'll definitely get a lot of use out of it, especially since I'm really enjoying circle cards after this card making session. I've never made so many before. And so there is a branded one that X-Cut makes. I'm talking about the circle cutter, but I found one that's on Amazon that is maybe a little bit of a reproduction. I don't know, it's so hard to tell, but it was a little bit less expensive. I could get it right away, because the X-Cut one is not in stock at on Amazon or on Craft Stash or anywhere, and I wanted it for this project, so I went ahead and bought the off-brand one on Amazon, and it actually works really well. So I don't have a link to it, but I'll link to the X-Cut one. So if you want the branded one, then I think it works pretty much the same. These letters come from the Crafter's Companion Shadow Alphabet set, and I waited a long time for this set of alphabet dies to go on sale. So it finally did, and I got the full set of letters and numbers. I think, are more meant to use the negative space, because the die is really cool in that when you cut it out, it adds this sort of hash mark kind of shadowing in the negative space. It's really, really neat, but I wanted the letters because I wanted to put the letters on this the curve of the circle here, and the size and scale of these letters was perfect for this. And I have so many alphabet dies, but this was like the perfect fit. So I decided to use the positive cutout from the letters, and I did double it up so that I have a little bit of a shadow that where I used white, so it is offset a little bit, but it's a cute card, and it's so fun to see it rock back and forth like that. So this was the first time that I made a rocker card, and I think I'll be doing it more. I kind of wish that I had put like a penny slider sort of mechanism in there so that you could have something actually floating and sliding back and forth, but there wasn't anything really in the Tonic kit that month to float within a rocker. So I think I'll just save that for next time, maybe. Okay, so I have a lot prepped here, and I'll talk through some of it. I did start with a card base that I made, a circle card base that I made exactly like I showed in that first card, where I folded the cardstock in half and did just a ever so slight partial die cutting. And we're gonna make a triple circle easel card this time. And so on that card base, circle card base, I did score roughly at the halfway point across just the front panel. And what I'm working on now is just decorating my decorative panel. So this die cut is the word happy, and it comes from Tonic Craft Kit number 30, Spring Sentiments, I think plural. I haven't even used this kit yet, but I was sort of shopping my stash to find the words, Happy Mother's Day, and so that's why I'm using a weird, sort of collection of things to achieve the sentiment, because that's not part of this specific kit. So I really love the happy that's in Craft Kit 30, I think. And some of the floral designs are almost very similar in shape to the florals that are part of the wreath in the Rosemaling kit. So I thought it wouldn't be too much of a stretch to use this sentiment. And I die cut, just did some partial die cutting of the purple mirror card, where I just put some scraps of purple right where those flowers are, instead of die cutting the sentiment out in full. And the Mother's Day word die, that is another Crafter's Companion die set that I think I got that in a mystery bag. And it worked out really perfectly. It's nice. It has dies for all the women in your life. So sister, daughter, grandmother, Mother's Day, mother, auntie, Nana. I think it has, what else does it have? It has a ton. So I pulled that one out and used the Mother's Day die for that. And here I'm putting a panel on, this is on the inside of my card. And when I die cut those wreath designs, I keep all the little bits that drop out. So you can see all those little bits there are from various die cuts, especially when I die cut it out of specialty paper. When I die cut it out of just plain white cardstock, then I just throw those away. But you just never know what, when something falls out of the die, what is an interesting shape to actually use. And so I leave it all until I'm done making all of the cards I'm going to make, and then I'll throw it away. So I'm working on my Make Art Station from Wendy Vici, and I love this Make Art Station for especially occasions like this where I'm making an easel card and I want to actually see it as it's meant to be displayed. And so having these thicker magnets, the circle magnets, they're pretty thick. They're like maybe 1/4 of an inch tall. they're really good because they'll act as easel stoppers, and that way I can actually see what the card is going to look like as I am sort of designing and decorating my panels, and I can make sure that the key is with these triple or multiple easel cards is especially if you're doing it the way I am, where I want it to be a little bit of a surprise that there are mini sort of easel pop-ups on the inside. So I want all of my easels to, when they fold down, be completely hidden by the largest circle. And so that means that, as these stack and when you put them up, some of it's going to get a little bit obstructed. So this is why I want to make sure that I haven't put my sentiment up yet, because I want to make sure that, here you can see it, that I'm positioning it in such a way that when it's open, you can still read everything and that it's not obstructed by the easels that are on the inside of the card. So, the banner that Mother's Day is on, that's a Tonic. That's a Tonic die set. It's one that I picked up on a Wednesday deal, and I got 3 different styles of banners. I think that was the one that had like party time or something like that, and it was a Stampin' die set, I think. These little sort of V shapes, they look a little bit like hearts to me, and they are what fell out of the that center sort of design that's on the middle size circle. And so that's what I mean by, sometimes when things fall out, sometimes they look like something and you can use it as well and get like a little bit more use out of a die cut, even though it's meant to just be the waist portion. I pulled out the Spring Sentiments die set again because there was a die in there that is a flower shape, and I actually want to use that as my stopper. And that way it coordinates back to the flowers that are kind of adorning the word happy. So I die cut it twice out of the specialty paper, and that's a soft paper, so that paper by itself is not going to be sufficient as a stopper. So I'm using just a foam disc, and this is my thicker kind of foam disc, and that's going to be what gives it the lift. And that little circle that I put in the center there, that little circle fell out of the center of the flowers on the wreath design. So like right next to the Y in the word day is a little circle cut out. So that little circle became the center of my little flower easel stopper. So I'm very, I like to use as much as I can. Let's just put it that way. But all this paper is so pretty that you can't help but want to use it all. This is going to be my easiest and fastest card. So this is my flat card. I guess I kind of worked a little bit backwards, where I did my pop-up card first, my interactive card, then my layered card, and now we're at my flat card. So all I've done here is made another circle card base, and from specialty paper, I just die cut from it these gorgeous Verso dies. So I've got the wreath and the sentiment, it's your day. And that's going to be it. It's beautiful and simple. And here I am using the iridescent drops that I made earlier. This is probably days later. It took me a while to create all of these cards. Partially to think of them, and then also, they're slightly more complicated cards, and so it did take a while to actually make them as well. But I thought these iridescent drops would be perfect for that card because it was so simple, but so I didn't want to introduce a new color or anything. And so here I'm going to go through all my cards and figure out what drops I'd like. And I'm making a couple more because I want to add those glitter drops to the centers of all of the flowers. And there are 2 more flowers on the card that I didn't have enough drops for. And this is one of the reasons why I like to make my drops and let them set and dry, and then figure out how I want to position and place them, because I just am very indecisive sometimes when it comes to where I want to put those little extra bits of embellishments. But here I decided that I'm going to actually use because this is a dot and drop kit. And so I'm going to use all of these piercings as my clue for where to put drops. And I'm putting like itty bitty drops. And I thought that it would be really hard to do that, but as it turns out, it's actually not that hard to hit those little piercings and to do small little drops. So I really love the dot and drop concept, and it just makes it so easy to kind of bling up your cards. Okay, so here's a final look at all of the cards that I created. This is my flat card. Really easy, beautiful card, because the dies are just so beautiful and they work so well together. And the papers in this month's kit are gorgeous as well. And this is my layered card, which is a triple stacked easel card. And I did pull in a couple dies from craft kit number 30, Spring Sentiments, which I still have to flip at some point, but it's one of the older kits that I bought when they made it available during the last vault sale. So I'll get to it eventually, but I definitely love that happy word die, so I pulled it in for this this card. Then my next card is my triple tier circle card. I don't even know what to call it, but it's usually called a triple tier pull-up or slider card, but here I'm using circles. And I am definitely, come Christmas time, making a snowman card using this concept. It's going to be so much fun. My husband and I have already kind of figured out, so the little pull-up tab is going to be like a little top hat, and you're going to pull on that, and it's going to be a little snowman. It's going to be so much fun. I think I might try to do a Christmas in July series. I have a lot of ideas for Christmas, and I might need to start in July to actually get them all done. And this is my second triple-tiered pull-up card, and all 5 of these cards are going out to our moms and grandmothers. So all of these cards were made with a purpose and with somebody in mind. So that's why I took a little bit of extra time to really make them a little bit extra special. And so this is my last card. It's my interactive card, and it's a rocker card, which is just so much fun. I love seeing that go back and forth. And I definitely want for my next rocker card to put a little penny slider mechanism in there so that you can actually see something else kind of float and move around on the card as well. So those are all of the cards that I made using this kit. If you enjoyed this video, please do consider liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing and hitting the notification bell so that whenever I post a new video, you'll get a notification and can check out what I'm up to. If there was anything that was unclear or you want to learn a little bit more about how to make some of my cards, definitely don't hesitate to leave me a comment. I'm more than happy to shoot a separate tutorial. I know a lot of times these sped up videos can make it a little bit hard to see what's going on, but I try to keep it a little bit short just for the sake of folks who don't want to hear all of the explanations. Thank you again, and until my next video, happy crafting and have a fantastic day. Bye!